My name's Christiana Holmes, and in this presentation, we'll be talking about sheet assembly and tips and some tools for creating sheets. And so we're going to just start off with like an overview of your drawing production tools and sheet creation tools. And if you've been working in open roads any number of years, then you probably have come across these at some point, but you will find all of the drawing production tools on the drawing production workflow or drawing production tabs. And so that will include all of your microstation labeling tools, civil labeling tools, and the ability to create sheets. So the tool for creating sheets and or name boundaries, I should say, is the place name boundary command. And so this dialog that you see creates the name boundaries, and you have a handful of different ways you can do that. The first 5 are civil, so you have 2 for plan, 1 for profile, and 2 for cross section. The last 3 are general microstation, I would call based types of sheets. Sorry about that. So the sheet creation process, what happens in when you start to create a sheet, first you got to start with a 2D or 3D design model. The 3D is used for cross-section and must be open if you're going to create cross-section sheets. Then you will start by placing your name boundaries, and that will be a boundary shape that is created. And these are the cliff windows where your sheets will be cut. Now, once you create the name boundary, you do have the ability to go ahead and create your drawings. So that first dialog here is the name boundary dialog and allows you to create those clip boundaries. If you have create drawing toggled on, then you can go ahead and create your sheets at the same time. When you do that, a saved view is created, and saved views have been around in MicroStation for a long time. That's what I know. Some people use them previous to ORD to create sheets, and that is what a saved view is. Just a view definition and includes what levels are on or off, view attributes, references, and we have massaged this some, as you'll see, in open roads. Also, what happens in the drawing, once the saved view is created, it will create a drawing model and then reference that saved view to the drawing model. So the saved view is the clip boundary, then that gets referenced to the drawing model, and then your annotation groups get placed. If there is an annotation group on the sheet seed, the default one will get placed. You can also change that one as you go to create the sheets. This is definitely important for cross-section and profile because that is how you will get your grid information. Once the drawing model is created and the annotation group is placed, then a sheet model is created, and then the drawing model is referenced to that sheet model. And the sheet model is typically done or should be done at a 1-to-1. And you think of this as just like a digital copy of what you would print to PDF. Okay. The sheet seed, kind of skimmed over that as we were talking about creating sheets. But when you go to create sheets, the first thing you'll do on the place name boundary dialog is select a drawing seed. Now this is populated from your workspace or work set and comes from a DGN library. That drawing seed will set a number of defaults. Defaults being a key word here, because I think a lot of users maybe see drawing seeds that are done by scale, and it's not locked to a scale. So just because the drawing seed was made at a particular scale does not mean you can't change the scale. So the drawing seed will set up a number of defaults, but those defaults can be changed. So when you go to the Create Drawing dialog, you also have some defaults that come from the sheet seed. Some of this is just from the library, like you'll see in green, but the other things you can change. So I can change the default annotation group. Again, I can change the scale. If I had changed the scale on this dialog, let's go back to something besides what was built in the sheet seed, I would need to make sure that the scales match on this Create Drawing dialog. All right, where can you manage your name boundaries? And that's your clip boundaries that you created for your sheets, and that is in the Name Boundaries Manager. And so that can be accessed from this little launcher. On the ribbon, there's also a key in. All groups that are referenced into the file or in the file, all name boundary groups should show up in your Name Boundary Manager. You can delete groups from here or delete individual boundaries. You can create sheets from within here, and you can fit the boundaries to the view. You also can rename. So if you didn't like the name that you chose initially, you can rename the name boundary group and the sheets. And so we're going to create a name boundary file. And so one tool or tip we could say is you don't have to cut the sheets in the same file as the name boundary. So you can just reference in what you want. This could also be done using reference containers. But in this case, I'm just going to do a direct attachment and say no nesting. And do that for all of the files that I chose. And so now that I have everything set up, I can do a fit view and create the name boundaries. I don't have to create the sheets in this same file. I can just create the clip boundaries. And the reason for that is you can then share that potentially with other disciplines. So drainage, traffic, all could be using the same clip boundaries. And so if I go and create my name boundaries in this file, I'm going to just save settings. And that is my reference container. Motif file is what it was called in this video. So that's a Geopack term. So there's my reference container. And then I'm going to create the name boundaries file. Like I said, you could do a direct attachment or you can do it through a reference container. So I'll choose this one here and say live nesting, and it's just going to attach those files. Now, it is important that display overrides, if you're using live nesting, should be set to never. All right, so now we have the files in that we want to see. Everything looks good. And I got my scale set, or maybe I'll readjust the scale. And then I'm going to pick my drawing seed. And again, I don't have to use the scale that was set. I can change that scale. Now, if I don't want to cut sheets, I just want to cut clip boundaries, I just leave that Create Drawing option toggled off. And then I can create my clip boundaries. All right, and then I can save that file with other disciplines, right? So if we just create a new file for our sheets, I'm going to go File, New. And we'll just create some plan sheets. And I'm going to bring in the reference container and the clip boundaries file. So I'll bring in the clip boundaries file, And again, do live nesting, depth of 1, and I'll set that to never. And then we're going to attach that name boundary or clip boundary file. And I'm just going to say no nesting because I don't really want to bring in everything that was referenced to that. But now I can just cut my sheets directly in here, and all I have in this file are sheets, and the clip boundary file can be shared amongst other disciplines. So I'll select my road and toggle on the little pencil, say create plan drawing. And again, I changed the scale. So I change the scale here. You can spit these out to separate DGNs. So if you wanted sheets to be in separate files, you can do that as well. And once you're ready, you just hit OK and let it do its thing. And now I have my sheets in a file separate than the clip boundaries. And I can navigate through them in this file. Saved view enhancement, and this is pretty important because I myself I don't think realized kind of how when you cut sheets, what it kept a hold of. So prior to 2023, it knew not just the model but the view and the view group that was used to cut sheets. And so if you had changed that view group, then it would not necessarily and turn levels on and off. It would not have necessarily picked up depending on what view or view group that you had done that in. And so there is a video. I don't think we'll have time to see that here today. There is a video though out there on the YouTube that will explain that and go over exactly what was enhanced and why. But this is the problem. It wasn't really intuitive as to what view group or specific group was being used, and that had effects on turning on and off levels and displays. And so now when you go in 2023, you can see what view group and view was being used. And this really came into play when people would change to like a multi-model view and not be in the default view anymore. So again, there is a video on that. Common plan production questions. Okay, so we'll just go through questions like we get a lot about plans production. So the first one is, how can I cut cross sections at specific locations? And so you can do this with the 2-point cross section, but it's you're doing one for every single station that you may want to have a cross section cut at. So the best way, or the fastest way, I guess, most efficient way, would be to create an event point list. And that does have to be stored on the geometry. So if you're a drainage person trying to make drainage structure cross sections, you would want to, work with your roadway engineer, who's ever in charge of the alignment, to create an event point list. Once the event point list is created, when you select that alignment, you'll have the option in that dropdown to pick the event point list. And so that would be the list of stations that you want your cross sections cut at. All right, so we'll see an example of that. And so I'm in the geometry file in this scenario, and I'm on the geometry tab. I want to go to the event point list option at the very end of the ribbon and select the alignment I want to add the event point list to. Now you can have more than one event point list. You see there's one here for driveways, and I'm going to add one for drainage structures. And you can add the event points a number of different ways. I think we'll see a couple different options here. One is by station offset, northing, easting. You can do horizontal and vertical cardinal points. So if I do by station offset, I can type in the station, or I can graphically kind of pick the station, whichever option you might want to choose. So in this case, I'm just going to type in the station that I want that event point at. And then it will add that to my event point list and bring up the dialog again. And so I should see station offset, northing, easting. Let's do that again. The other option you have, instead of typing in a station, is to reset or right-click to locate points. So if I right-click, I can pick like a drainage structure, and that can be the event point list, or that can be an event point in my list. And I don't have to do them individually. I can do multiples at once. So if I come back, I can add multiple structures if I'm picking them like this. And then right click. And then you'll also notice if I pick the point, it does give it a description of what structure that is. So that's kind of nice. Once I have the event point list, now I can go cut my cross-section sheet. So I'm going to go into this cross-section sheet file. Now that I'm in the file, I will go to the tool for creating sheets, which is my place name boundary. And again, I did mention this at the beginning, but for cross-section, you do need the 3D view open. Otherwise, you will get a message saying there that it cannot create cross-section slices. All right, so we're just going to do cross-section by interval. We'll pick the drawing seed, leave all the defaults as is. If I'm doing drainage structures, I may want to change the top and bottom clearance, but that one looks okay. Now, once I select the alignment, I'll see the event point lists that are available. I do have to include control points and then toggle on the include event points only, but then you'll see it's creating those slices at those locations. I do have create drawing toggled on, so I'm going to go ahead and just create the sheets. Again, you can change the name. That's the name of the saved view, or you, so if you don't want the station, you can put something like drainage structures or something of that nature. So hit OK and let it create those cross-section drawings. So if I go back and look at my sheets, I should see all 4 drawings, and then I will see them on the sheets as well. How can I create title sheets or detail sheets? So I talked about this in the beginning. There are 5 icons across the top. The last 3 are available to you in OpenRoads and in MicroStation, and are for more like creating sheets that necessarily aren't on some civil, alignment. So like detail sheets or like a title map, something like that. So we're going to go through creating the title sheet and or detail sheet. And so right now we're in a file just called title sheet, and I can attach any kind of map or, project container for my title area. So I'll set that one to a nesting depth of 1 and bring that in. So I want to make a title sheet around this area. And so if I go back to my place name boundary tool, I can go and select one of those three options. We'll go with the first one. And when I hit the drop down, I should, if depending on the workspace, I should see the different options for those drawing boundaries. Now, initially, when it's like first launches, it's going to be like really small if the scale is set to something really small. And you can see as I change the scale, the little box, the area I want to cut the sheet around gets larger. And so when I get the scale I want, I can left click again, fill out these properties and make sure that I'm matching the same scale as the first dialog, and then hit OK. So once I hit OK, it will then create a title sheet just like that around the area of that block. Another great question is, how do I integrate Bing Maps into my title sheet, or really any plan sheet if you wanted to see the maps as an aerial behind that. So we'll take a look at this video. So still in my title sheet. And so if I want to attach the Bing Maps, I can do that as a raster. So if I go to File, Raster, and I can do this, I'm just doing it in the file that the title sheet was created in, but you can do this in its own file as an aerial reference as well. The layers there just are what will be brought in, so like the different looks. So if I say road, you'll see it looks something like that. Or I could say aerial or the hybrid, and then I will see that on my sheet. So you just to integrate with Bing Maps, you just attach that Bing Map as a reference. Now, you do have to have a geographic coordinate system set for Bing Maps to work. I also can then label just like I would any other sheet. So if I wanted to label, the begin end project for my title sheet, I would just use Civil Labeler or any of the other labeling tools to place those just like I can in any other plan sheet. So we'll begin end project. And place those in our title sheet. Same thing with like the name of the alignments. You can also have a civil label set up that will easily place those. So I can say this is London Road in this case, and then this one will be State Road 97 or Route 97. All right, another frequently asked question is, how can I add a detail to the sheet that's already created? And I think we're going to see a couple examples of this. So first we'll see a detail, and then we'll see adding multiple profiles to one sheet. It's the same steps, just going to make a note of a couple different things when we go to watch the video, but you're basically going to follow the same steps for creating the name boundary. The only difference is on the create drawing dialog, you, instead of creating a new sheet, you're going to add to a sheet that's already there. So we'll see the detail first, and then we'll see the driveway profile, sorry. And so I have a plan sheet already created, you can see here, and I want to put a detail down in the bottom portion of that plan sheet. And I have a model that has the detail, simple detail that I want to place. And so in here, I'm going to go back to my place name boundary tool. And I'm going to use, instead of the by drawing boundary, I'm going to use the by 2 points in this option. We'll give it a name, curve ramp, and we are going to go ahead and create the drawing. And so in this case, I don't get to pick a drawing seed initially. I just get to go and place my 2 points around the area that I want. And then for the create drawing dialog, I'm going to set a scale that I think is needed. I just know that the 1 to 10 inch or 1 to 1 inch equals 10 foot is good for this one. And here's the change. Instead of adding a new sheet, I'm going to add to the sheet I already have created. All right, so once I hit that, I'll say OK. And then I will have that attached to my sheet. Now, if I don't pick an area for it to go, which is what we'll see next, then it will just place that right dead in the middle of the sheet. But it is just a reference, so you can move that reference. And also, it will create a drawing area for you. You can move that out of the way as well. You also can clip this reference just like you can any other reference. Do anything else with it. So another example of that would be multiple driveway profiles. And so in this case, we have a road and we have 3 different driveway profiles. And in each one of these, it's just a flat profile just to make it easy. But we got some shapes in here so we know which one is which. So I've got a circle on one, a square, and then some curves. And so we'll start with this first one, and we'll go and create our name boundaries. So if I go to my place name boundary tool, and this is just the same that we've been doing in each little clip here, right? So I'm going to pick the profile, and I'm going to pick the drawing seed as profile, which means there are 2 profile ports. And so for this particular seed, so I have a top and a bottom, but I really need 3, and you could make one with 3. And I'm just going to change the defaults to fit what I need on this profile a little better. In the first one, I'm just going to do what I normally would do and have it create a new sheet. Now it's going to create that and put that in the port 1. So that's port 1. Here's port 2. So if we go back now and create a name boundary for the second driveway, and again, same thing, we're going to go to our place name boundaries tool and choose the same drawing seed and change the defaults to something that fits our profile a little better. And continue with the process. So create drawing is toggled on. And in this case, the one thing we're going to change again is we're going to go to a sheet that's already created. But if you have multiple ports, you can select the drawing boundary port that it goes into as well. So not only can I put it on a sheet that's already created, I can put it in an area that's already been stored. And like I said, you could have 3, 4, 5, 6, as many of these drawing boundary identifiers in your sheet seed as you wanted. So when I select that and hit OK, you'll see it then puts that one in port 2. Now, what happens if we need a third port and we don't have one? Well, the same thing would happen that we did with the detail. We would just go ahead and open the profile and place the name boundary. And again, this just has 2 ports, or profile. I'm going to go ahead and create another profile and adjust my defaults. And go ahead and create the drawing. So again, I'm going to put it on the sheet that's already created, but now you'll see that both ports 1 and 2 are being used. But just like with the detail, if I go ahead and say OK, it will create another one for me and just place it right dead in the middle. Again, this is just a reference, so you can move this about. One thing I would recommend is if you make a sheet seed, you can have like shapes that are construction class. It will allow you to snap to align these profiles a little easier if you're doing something like that. But you can just move these about once they're here and arrange them how you see fit. Okay, cross-section navigator. So cross-section navigator was a tool that was introduced, I think, in 10.10, and it allows for easy navigation of your cross-section drawing models. And you have to have the drawing models in the active file, but we'll see an example of that. And so if I go in this file, I'll see that I have a number of cross-section drawing models. And before, we could navigate through the view group, which can be a lot depending on how many you have in here, or you can go through the models dialog. But this tool was added so that it just makes it easier to navigate through those different cross-section drawing models. And so basically, I would select the alignment and select a view for those drawing models to go into. I can navigate using the arrows, or I can select the station from the list here and then continue to navigate from there. The other thing I would say is a great tip that's not in this video is the ability to label while you're using this cross-section navigator. So if I want to label a civil labeler, I can do that while this is open, and those labels will stick. So it makes it a little easier to go through each one and label. How do I add new cross-sections to existing cross-sections, or cross-sections that have sheets that have already, or cross-section drawing models that have already been cut? And so that ability was added. And so you don't have to get rid of all. So let's say an example would be, I cut, I don't know, cross sections through 100 through 120, and then I forgot a couple, or I needed to add some, but I had already sheeted them and done some labeling in the drawing models. Now you can just get rid of those sheets and keep all your drawing models and then recut the sheets. So we'll see that example. And so in here, I'm going to create some cross-section drawings and sheets. So we'll give it a start location and a stop location. And go ahead and create those slices. So we are going to go ahead and create the drawing and the sheet model. Now you do have the option just to create the drawings here. You can see that there's above the model name, there's a toggle for creating sheet drawings. Okay, so now we have those created. We got a drawing model created. And we're going to make an edit here. So we'll place a label and get elevation offset. And so we can see that on our sheets, and we don't want to have to redo that work, but we're like, oh man, I need to go back and add some more sections in here. So previously you would have to have deleted the drawing models and sheets, but now I can just remove those sheets and keep the drawing models and then go cut more slices. So I'll go use the cross section by 2 points. I do want to add it to the group of cross section slices I already created. So in this case, I'm going to select the alignment and then place a slice right there. So I'm going to toggle off that option to create the sheet model and just create the drawing model in this case. So right now we're only creating the drawing model, and we can give it a name so we can see it pretty easily. So there's our drawing model. It's not at an even station, but we named it custom so you can see that there. And so now when I want to sheet all those again, if I go to the Name Boundaries Manager, I'll see all of those and I'll see them in order of station. And I can select the group and right click and say Create Cross-Section Sheets from Drawings. And then that will bring up like a half of that dialog, right, where it's just giving me the sheet or the sheet model properties that I can change. So now I can resheet those, and I should see on not sure what sheet it's on. I guess we'll go look on sheet 1. For 1, we still have our drawing model intact. We didn't have to delete that, but we also should have the new cross-section slice on a sheet as well. How can I project a pipe profile to an alignment? And so this is more for my drainage and utility folks. And this would be after you have created a profile run for your drainage or utility network. So the first 3 options you see here are for creating profile runs for drainage and or utilities. Once that profile run is created, you can then project that run onto any other element. So I am in a drainage file because that's where I have to access the profile run. And so if I go to the drainage and utilities model, on the layout tab is where you'll see the options for your profile runs and then the ability to project that run. So in this case, I'm just going to go with the easy command, which is just where I get to pick the links that I want in my profile run. So I'm going to give that run a name. And then also give it a feature definition. So when it creates the profile run, it creates a linear element down the center of the pipes, and it puts that element on a feature definition. And so that's what I'm picking now. So following my cursor, it says select first link to add to profile run. So I'm going to just go ahead and pick the conduits I want in the profile. Once I create the profile run, you will be able to see it through Explorer, and that's probably the easiest place to find it. Like I said, it does make a linear element down the center of the pipe, but it's kind of hard to get to sometimes, so this is the easiest way to see that profile run. And also an enhancement to 2023 was the ability to see this in Explorer through a reference file as well. But now that I have the profile run created, I can project that run onto my roadway alignment. And so it's just 2 clicks. One, you pick the run, and then you pick what you want to project onto. And then once I open the alignment, I will see that on my alignment. Now, what if I want to cut sheets? I can cut sheets directly on the alignment, but you also can do this through a reference. So just because it's in a profile does not mean that I cannot do this through a reference. But either way, I will cut the profile along the roadway alignment instead of the profile run. Another question about profiles, and typically, I guess this is more than just pipe profiles, but how can I display multiple surface in a profile view? And your two options are quick profile from surface or create 3D cut. And so we'll see an example of that. So in this example, I have a pipe profile, and right now the active surface is the proposed roadway. And so that is what I see here, that active surface. If I was to change the active surface to the existing ground and set that as active, you'll see that the proposed will go away, and now all I see is existing. But a lot of times we want to see both. So I'm going to set this back to the active. And so, like I said, you have two options. One is quick profile from surface, and that's just going to give you the profile line from the surface you picked. So if I go to my vertical tools, go to quick profile from surface, I can also get to it on the profile view. And then I'm going to pick what I want to show the profile on, which is going to be my pipe run in this case, and then pick the reference surface, which is my existing ground. And then I will see both proposed and existing. Now, those are only going to the extents of the profile. So if you wanted something outside of the profile, you would want to do what's called a 3D cut. So in the profile window, there are tools at the end, the create 3D cut and refresh 3D cut. So to create it, you are going to select that option, and you have two options for the method. One is corners and one is the full extent of the profile. Corners means I'm going to place a box around where I want to see the 3D cut. And so what it's going to do is to give you a slice of the 3D when you make the cut. So whatever is on in the 3D is what you should see. And that's why you're seeing the drainage structures and the pipe there. If you don't want to see certain things, you can just turn those levels or references off before you make the cut, and then you would just see what is on in 3D. Or you can do a refresh. The ability, this was in 2022 R1, so 10, 11 or newer. The ability to do station ranges on sheets was added. This is my next favorite. Turn the volume off. There we go. All right, so in here we have some name boundaries cut, and we are just going to go ahead and create our cross-section sheets. And so everything is already set up for us. So if I hit OK, I will cut sheets, and then I will see there's the station range for this sheet, and then it's set up in my sheet border. Now, same thing, if I move sheets, I can see the station range, and it's matching what cross sections are on the sheet. I can do the same thing for plan sheets. So I can, and also can include the alignment name in this case. So for plan sheets, I'm going to go ahead and create the drawing and hit OK. and I will see the alignment name, which just happens to be GOMBL or baseline, and the station range. And as I move about, I'll see that, and it should match with my match line. And again, that is just a text favorite that was added in the 10.11 release. Cross-section labeler by 2 points. So this was another location method given to Civil Labeler. So you didn't have the option to pick 2 points prior to this version. You could only kind of pick 1 point. And so this adds the ability to manually, label without an annotation group, slopes and lengths and things like that. We'll see that here in this video. And so I do have this cross-section drawing already created, and I did already place some civil labels. But let's say I wanted to add, or maybe my slopes didn't come through in the annotation group, and so I need to come in and add a few. So I have some civil labels already set up, and so this one is the slope, and there's the location method cross-section by 2 points. So I can just pick my 2 points and then place that piece of text. And then I also, like I said, can do a length. So maybe I want to do something like the length and the point names that I'm doing the links between. So I have one set up there, and so I'll just select from point to point, and that will give me from that point name to that point name and the length. Okay, so if you want to check out any of the additional learning resources, we do have drawing production learning path on the Bentley Learn website. So you can get to all of those there.